How you doing, everyone? Thank you very much for tuning into my latest video. I do apologise, this has been a wee bit late. Obviously last week I had quite a few. I had an interview to do. I had a lot of one-on-one calls last week, as I mentioned, which were, like I say, lasting up to an hour and a half at a time. I mean, they are starting to become. It's starting to become more like a job now, if I'm being honest. And I don't mind it. But as I said to someone in the comments the other day there, it's actually starting to take up so much of my time now that I'm going to have to set up some kind of membership or something like that. Because like I say, it's taking up the time of, at the very least, a part-time job. Sometimes more if you include the comments, etc, and the messages on Instagram and through email as well. So it does take your time, and I would love to do it for free. It's just not possible. So like I said to someone the other day there, it's one-on-one video calls, things of that nature, is all going to go through the membership, which is just a small fee every month. I'll try and keep it as low as I can, and in that way, that's obviously because like you say, I need to replace the income. Everyone has to do that if you're going to do this kind of thing, or if not, I would need to go and find myself 20 or 30 hours every month, at which point I wouldn't be available anyway. So I mean, I will still help people through email and stuff. It's just that members and donators are going to have to be priority, because they're obviously donating. So that's just something I wanted to say, just for moving forward. Perhaps we'll move into a world one day where we don't need to charge these things, but unfortunately the way things sit just now, that's not where we're at. But that's what we're working towards. There's no doubt about it. Where everyone comes together and sort of puts in time as a collective rather as individual. I might actually do a video on that later on as well. I've got that live stream's coming up. I'm not sure if this video will upload before it. I'm hoping it will. It's taken a little bit longer because I wanted to make the video a little bit longer, and I had to refresh my memory as well, just with some of the stuff, because it's been a few years since I researched this stuff. So I had to go through a couple of things as well. I've posted a link for the interview. It's going live 6 o'clock Monday tonight, which is the 19th, I think. I just double check that. Yeah, the 19th. And then I think it's the 27th of February, the 6th of March and the 14th of March, all at 6 PM. So the link's been provided, if you wish to obviously catch that as well. And I think that's me just about covered everything that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, thank you very much again for the 14,000 subscribers. I mean, it's just crazy. It really is madness how quickly it's grown. I mean, if you told me a month ago that this is where I'd be sitting just now, I just wouldn't have believed you, and it's all thanks to you. Which is why I put 100% effort into these things, because you've been so forthcoming with me, and the messages of positivity and tell me to keep going and all the rest of it is giving me inspiration. So you deserve the best, and you deserve someone to put some effort into this, which is why it's obviously taken a little bit longer to get this out there. There is a couple of other videos coming up as well. There's a small, the food is medicine one, there's a small segment of that still needs to be done. And I can't remember what I had written down for after that. I would need to check it. But today's video is about, I've called it Transgenderism and the madness of where it came from. Now, when I started this channel, like I've said a few times before, I wanted to try and raise awareness, not just about what was going on in the DWP, but what I'd learned about the world and what's going on with it and where they're trying to take us. And it's raising awareness about things that we need to know about, that we see in everyday newsreels, or it's affecting everyday life, and this is definitely one of them. There's no doubt about that. So transgenderism, I mean, I'll just get straight into it. So this is supposed to be about people's rights, right? Okay, I'm all for that. But it does appear to be about the rights of transgender people. Now, I've had this in the comments a couple of times recently, people saying that if I wanted to stop divide and rule, then why am I calling out trans people? I would just like to start off by saying, I am for freedom and liberty for everyone. That's what freedom and free speech is. Freedom and free speech means that not only you are free to sort of do what you want as long as you're not imposing it on other people, but you're also allowed to say what you want, so as long as you're not engaging in hate crime, and that's fine. But that's not what this is about. As I told someone in the comments a couple of weeks ago, they had claimed that wokeism and this stuff about transgenderism and the fight about it is all about the rights of these people, but it's not. And there's really no point in engaging with someone that's sort of at that point of thinking, because anything I say to them is just going to antagonise the situation, at which point they start accusing me of hate speech. So that's not what adults do. And someone else said to me in the comments that they believe my view on the left about being spoilt children was wrong, which you're entitled to have that view. But this person, I think, was talking about the left of old. I'm from the left of old, the old Labour, for people, working classes. That's not what I'm talking about when I speak about spoiled children. I'm talking about the woke ideologues that scream and shout profanities if you don't agree with what they say. Now that's not freedom of speech. That's tyranny. And that is exactly why it's there, because it's to bring in tyranny. See, the thing about it is, right, if you can get everyone absolutely terrified of saying anything at all because they're worried they might upset the person next to them, then eventually people are going to censor themselves into silence. There's no doubt about that. I sometimes do it myself, where I sort of stop and think, will I say that or will I not? But I've stopped doing that again, because I thought, well, I'm just going to say it because I'm not engaging in hate crime. I am absolutely for the rights of transgender people, right? Now, if you are born into a body and you believe that you are in the wrong body, then I believe you need support. That, hands down, that is exactly what that person needs, because to be stuck in the wrong body, it must be a terrible thing. Or to feel like you're stuck in the wrong body, because they're not actually stuck in the wrong body, it just feels like they are. I mean, back when I was younger, that person would just sort of go for the opposite sex, and many members in the gay community are actually standing up against this as well. But I mean, it's not about the rights of transgender people. That's not what it's about. It just isn't. Because these transgender people, the vast majority of them don't want anything to do with us. If you wish to dress up as the opposite sex, that is entirely up to yourself. That's your own business, and it's certainly none of mine or anyone else's. And if you decide to walk down the street dressed as a member of the opposite sex, and you feel comfortable doing that, then you deserve to walk down the street without getting abuse. And if I did see someone who was dressed up as the opposite sex getting abuse, I would certainly stand in. Of course I would. Because I wouldn't tolerate anyone getting bullied in my presence, let alone someone that's trying to live their life in whichever manner they see fit. And this is the problem as well. This is why these organisations that exist do these things, because there is silly people out there that tend to do these things, and I've done it myself when I was a kid. A joker, but you don't realise what you're doing to people. But this takes it to another level, because if these people feel discriminated against, it can make them suicidal, as it can with anyone. I was discriminated against when I was overweight, and I wasn't trying to silence everyone. I went and done something about it. And people could argue, well, if someone's feeling the wrong body, they are going to go and do something about it and get the relevant procedure to then achieve that. Now, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. Again, if people want to do that, you be my guest. But I would caution, obviously, safety, or I would counsel walking into it with caution rather, because from what I can tell, the vast majority of these people who go through these procedures to then become members of the opposite sex soon realise that actually this has been the wrong thing to do, and I would like to reverse it. And when they do, they end up suicidal and depressed. But this This is what they were going for, these procedures to try and avoid being suicidal and depressed, but then they end up suicidal and depressed anyway. So how is that bloody helping people? It's not, because it's not about helping people. And again, if you're above 16, 17, or if you're above 16 and that's, or 18 in America, or whatever it is, and you decide that you want to go through one of these sex changes, that's absolutely fine by me. I mean, you're not going to any protest from me, stop that. If you want to do it, that's fine. But when people start saying that children are having gender dysphoria and that they deserve their rights as well, in fact, they deserve their rights so much so that we need to delete the right, delete it from their guardianship or their parents. I mean, that's why they're their guardian, because they need to look after them. That's why you've got a mum and dad, or like I say, or a guardian, because they're there to look after you. They're there to counsel against these types of decisions. So for 5-year-old, mummy, I want to be a boy or I want to be a girl. When I was a kid, oh well, we can understand that. They would maybe give you a doll to play with, or a My Little Pony, or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is. And that would be the end of it, and then they would grow out of it. I've got a brother and sister, you have a brother and sister in their 20s. One, the boy, Stephen, he was more like a wee girl when he was a baby. And Chantel was more like a wee boy. The two of them, like Chantel used to walk about in army stuff and play with bloody Stephen's army stuff. And Stephen, he didn't play with dolls or anything like that, but he because he had long curly hair, he actually looked a little bit like a girl. But yet the two of them have grown up, and they have become prominent members of the female and male sexes. Stephen does everything that you would expect a man to do, and Chantel does everything to expect a woman to do. She's a hairdresser. So just because some kid decides that for a time in their childhood or in their infancy that they want to play with a doll or they want to play with an action man, that doesn't mean to say you need to go and bloody start castrating them and putting them into sex changes. This is actually happening. This is actually happening, and I mean, this is the problem as well. Like I said, they're saying it's about the rights of transgender people, but what about the rights of the women that participate in women's sports, that are having rejected members of the male sex deciding, because they've got low self-esteem of being rejected from whatever bloody sport they played, that they feel it's right to then start saying that, well, actually I identify as a bloody woman, and I identify as a woman, and sorry, somebody tried to phone me, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, I identify as a woman, and then they can go. Sorry, that's thrown me off there, I do apologise. Yeah, someone that identifies as a woman, plays women's sports, can then, like that Fallon Fox, the UFC, she's absolutely annihilating people. Because they're genetically different, and these transgender activists, none of which are bloody transgender, the vast majority of them aren't, are saying that it doesn't have any effect. It doesn't matter. Right, okay, so if it doesn't matter, if there's no genetic advantage for women who become men in women's sports, then why is it that women who become men don't participate in boxing or mixed martial arts? Why is that? Because there's a genetic disadvantage, and they would get absolutely mauled. In fact, they wouldn't be allowed to join it, because a woman who becomes a man is genetically inferior in boxing, mixed martial arts. Of course they are, because when you get into boxing, mixed martial arts, you purposely build yourself up so that you become formidable. And you've got a genetic advantage, so you'll never see that. So that would be my question to them. Why is that? If that's the case, why doesn't the women do it when they become men? Because there's no point, because they would get hurt. What about the rights of young girls who are afraid to use toilets in their high schools because they don't want to share a unisex toilet with men or boys. So much so that they've gone to the extreme lengths of soiling themselves in classrooms, and I feel so sorry for those girls, I really do, because that's to sit there and worry so much so that you'll soil yourself to avoid using a toilet. I believe that's gone too far too far, and I've actually myself had an experience with this. So a few years ago, there was a new high school built here, and they have indeed got that. They've got a unisex toilet, and I used to play football up there on a Thursday night, and there was one evening in particular. I was just getting ready it was like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I can't remember. And there must have been, because there's other activities there as well, and there must have been an activity for young girls that had just finished. Well, I'd been urinating in the cubicle, and all I had was a pair of tracksuit bottoms on, and I had my shirt off. Now I've just finished urinating in the cubicle and I've come out, and I mean, from here to that radiator where there's a little girl standing, I mean, she couldn't have been any more than 8. I mean, I felt embarrassed and I mean, I felt violated, really, so I can only imagine how she felt. So I can kind of understand, because like I said, it wasn't a nice experience. I thought there's something seriously wrong here. We should not be standing in the same space using the toilet. We just shouldn't be. It's wrong. And yet, it's happening all over. It's just being pushed ahead. Well, they're just pushing it ahead now. There's actually I can't remember the name of the group, but there's a group of concerned parents, transgender, so I can't remember what it's called, but they're obviously fighting against this type of thing. I've got a note of it. What is it actually? Yeah, they're actually the transgender trend, it's called, and they're actually opposing this, and rightly so. And it's not because we don't care about the rights of transgender people. It's because we care about the rights of everyone, not just transgender people, because that's what it appears to be. But like I said at the start, it's not about transgender people, it's not about their rights. This is about an agenda, and they need people to self-censor. There was a guy on GB News, I can't remember his name the other week there, but he was debating this. It might not have been the other week, it was the other week that I seen the video, it might have been a few months ago. But he was basically saying to Julie Harter-Brewer, look, we don't want to just accept it and don't say another word about it. And it was those exact words that he used. That's where we're at with these woke idiots. Just accept the fact that we are right and don't ever say anything about it again. And if you do, I'm going to accuse you of hate crime or transphobia. I mean, people are losing their bloody jobs because of this. I've seen people walking out of university lectures because the professor stood there and says that men and women are biologically and genetically different, which they are. It's a bloody fact. As I've already explained, I mean, look at it for men's and women's sports. Just pose that question to them. If there's no difference, then why do women who become men not join the UFC? It's very simple, because it's obvious why they don't. Because they'll get bloody smashed to smithereens. As we're seeing Fallon Fox doing, she should be in the jail for that, mate. She should be done for GBH. It shouldn't be allowed, but it's allowed to happen because it's supposed to be about transgender rights. It's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It's so that they can press ahead with their agenda of no gender. They want no gender. The assimilation, as it's known. They want everyone cyborgs, machines, hooked up to a dystopian bloody nightmare that's with your consciousness uploaded to a cloud, and then, I mean, this is they want control of everything. See, this is the thing as well. When you've not had any of that nonsense put into you like microchips, you can still break out of the perception programming. But when that chip's in there, you can forget about that because they'll have control of it, and that's why they're desperate to push ahead with it. And this is just a small part of it. If they can get people frightened to say anything because they're feared in case someone bloody puts them into hate crime, then that dystopian agenda will become a reality a lot quicker. I mean, the amount of times you see 2030 as well, 2030, 2030, 2030, Agenda 2030, because it's 2030, because I believe the walls are closing. Well, I know the walls are closing, and that's why things appear to be getting worse, because the walls are closing in. I mean, look at World War II. Last days of World War II, you had Hitler, and he was beat. He knew he was. For months, it was clear. It was evident that he wasn't going to get out of it. And he was still sending bloody young boys, 12 and 13. In fact, some of them were as young as 9, out the bunkers to fight the Russians, knowing fine well they were going to meet certain death. He knew, but see, they push ahead to the end, because that's what psychopaths do. They'll go all the way with this, no doubt about it. And then you say to yourself, well, so it's about the rights of transgender people, right? Okay, so why are you castrating children? Children, let children be children. And people say, oh, and I would have loved to have asked this to any school. Have you had an influx of students telling you that they believe they're in the wrong body or they are the opposite gender? If the answer to that question, it's a very small percentage, minute, then that is again proof that this is an agenda. We never got taught any of this stuff at school because we didn't question our gender. That's why we didn't question our gender, because we never got taught it. And people would say, yes, but what about the kids that are quietly questioning it? Right, well, I've just asked a question about that and you've said it's a small percentage, which it would have been. It would have been. It's to question your gender, it was still regarded as a basically mental illness. Not quite those terms, but it wasn't changed until, I think it was 2013. I mean, that was Miriam Grossman I got that from. She was on that documentary, What is a Woman? And that's where we're at. You've got a guy running around the fucking planet asking people what a woman is and nobody can answer him. That's where we're at. A woman's someone that's born with breasts and a vagina. That's what a woman is to me. Whether it works or not, whether it can produce or not, that's what a woman is. And I'll say it one more time. Gender is decided at conception, not at birth. I don't care. I don't care what your textbooks say, mate. Your textbooks are baloney. It's nonsense. It is, I'm sorry, and I'll challenge any transgender activist to a debate. And I'll certainly do it after I bring it to this next point. So, people say, how the hell has this been allowed to happen? Why do they think it works? They think it works because this stuff, I've got this off Wikipedia, this stuff. And obviously Miriam Grossman as well, but Wikipedia, that any time a child decides that they are in the wrong gender, because I mean, when as I said before, you need to change the information that's playing, and that's what they're doing with our children. They're changing the information that's playing on the curriculum, and they're manipulating kids, and they're causing serious mental health problems. And I'll challenge you again, look at the percentages of the children that have gone through these sex changes, and not even just the children, the people, adults as well, and decided they want to go back because of the mental health problems it causes. Then you'll see that this stuff should be banned. It should be absolutely banned. And here's this next point is why it should be banned. So anytime a child decides that they want to change their sex, it's brilliant. It's seen as a great thing. Well, that's great. Diversity and inclusion and all that. And yes, we are a benevolent society because we castrate our children. Right, okay. I don't believe that, but I'll ride the bus to the next bloody stop. Why do you think castrating children's okay? Well, because we have someone by the name of John Money, who was a liar, and what he did back in the 60s was nothing short of despicable. In fact, it was child abuse. John Money was a man, and his field was gender dysphoria and gender identity and all that nonsense. And back in, I think it was back in 1967, there was these two twins in Canada by the name of the Reimer twins. And they had, is it phimosis they call it or something? It's where there's something to do with the urine. They don't like the way it's something to do with the urethra. Well, anyway, what they decided was that to avoid any further mishaps, that they were going to circumcise this child. And they did, and it had gone wrong. And tragically enough, the baby ended up with no penis. Now, his parents were young. They were like 20, 21-year-old. They were working class, uneducated. And they were quite religious as well, I think. And they were distraught, obviously. I mean, they were literally praying, because here they had a young baby boy, 8 months old, with no penis. Well, anyways, as coincidence would have it, they had seen this guy, this John Money guy, on a Canadian TV station talking about this stuff, believing that this man was the answer to their prayers. So they had taken them to, I think they were from Winnipeg, or they'd taken them to Winnipeg in Canada, I can't remember, to obviously for a consultation with this man. And we'll call it what it was. He manipulated his parents to believe that the way to go would be completely to castrate this child, go through these procedures, get him a vagina, get him to play with dolls, teach him to sit down to pee, all that stuff, and raise him as a woman or a girl. Now they heard this man say that this would this is possible. You can live as the opposite sex, provided you get the child before 3. So they thought, oh great, this man is the answer to our bloody prayers. We'll go for a consultation straight away, and they did. And he manipulated them. He basically told them that all this was possible, and it wasn't. I mean, it really is. It's horrific. Like when you think about it, about what this man done to this, and it wasn't just to the child, the one child. This destroyed this whole family. Because when you look at Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, if you haven't heard of that, I suggest you read it. And in that, what was paramount for the dystopian of society to come to fruition was the breakdown of the family unit. The breakdown of the family unit, and that is exactly what this transgender stuff does. You get a son or a daughter that then comes to you and says, look, I don't care how liberal you are or how open-minded or how awake you are. If you get a child that comes and says that to you, that's going to traumatise you a little bit. You're going to wonder, what's going on here? And it does break down the family unit. And again, and if it's getting to the stage now where if parents don't agree with their children's wishes, then the children's going to get the child are going to get taken from them. That's where we're at. Because they want to state raise these children, because the children are the future. As the Jesuits used to say, or they still do, it's their mantra, give me a child up to the age of 7, I'll show you the man. Or give me a child to the age of 7 and the possibilities are endless. And that's why, because the children are the future. That's why I believe these leaders, they've been groomed to be leaders. That's why they do it the way they do it, because they've been groomed from a very young age. As per the Jesuit mantra. And it just completely destroys the family, as it did the Reimer family. So he got the procedure, castrated. Well, he already didn't have a penis, so I don't think it took much persuasion to his parent, for money to his parents, to say, look, it'd probably be better just taking the whole lot off. Because he's not got a penis anyway, so you might as well, this is the right thing to do. I'm sorry, it's absolutely horrific, it really is. So they they castrated him. Don't forget, this is on Wikipedia, so anyone that puts in the comments that your channel's going to get taken down, this isn't a secret. It's out there. It's on Wikipedia. There's conflicting information which I'll come to, but it's still there. The part that I'm reading now is still there. It's all on Wikipedia, so it's not a secret. They want you to know this stuff now. They want you to know about it now. It's time. It's time for them to bring it forward. Just as it's time for us to wake up, it's time for them to bring it forward. And that's where we're at. Sorry, where was I? Sorry. Yeah, so, I mean, the Reimer twins, one of them got castrated. And he was given dolls to play with. He was told to sit down to pee, as I mentioned. All that stuff. Everything that you would do if you had a daughter. Well, eventually, as he'd gotten older, he'd started to want to do the natural thing, which was to stand up and pee. This, of course, posed serious problems for him at school. Of course he was bullied children can be terrible, very terrible at times. And he was called cave women. He used to call them cave women. And of course it affected them, not just him, the whole family. Ended up having to take the child out and homeschooling him. But his brother was involved in this as well, and he didn't get castrated. But when you look at Money's teachings, he believed that, I just read through it briefly before I'd done this, but he believed that because obviously it's all just theories, you needed subjects to experiment with, and he believed that you needed identical twins, one male, one female. And that's what he got. So when the family started taking these children for consultations with him, there was times where John Money would spend time alone with these two lads. And this is on Wikipedia. What they would do. That like I say, this is on Wikipedia. This, and I'm going to read it to you of what actually happened when these two lads were in this man's company alone. According to John Colapinto, who published a biography of Reimer in 2001, Wikipedia, the sessions with Money included what Money called childhood sexual rehearsal play. Money theorised that reproductive behaviour formed the foundation of gender, and that play at thrusting movements in copulation was a key aspect of gender development in all primates. Starting at age 6, according to Brian, the twins were forced to act out sexual acts, with David playing the female role. Money made David get down on all fours, and Brian was forced to come up behind him and place his crotch against his buttocks. Money also forced David in another sexual position to have his legs spread, with Brian on top. On at least one occasion, Money took a photograph of the two children doing these activities. There's a word for that. There's a word for what you call him. And because of where we're at with algorithms and AI, I can't even say it on this app, but you'll know what I mean, because that's what he was. And this is the case, that whenever a child decides they want to be the opposite sex, this is the man they look to, that started it, that says it's successful. I'll read on. When either child resisted these activities, Money would get angry. Of course he would, because predators do that. Both David and Brian recall that Money was mild-mannered around their parents. Met many people like that in my life. I lived with one for 21 years. But ill-tempered when alone with them. When they resisted inspecting each other's genitals, Money got very aggressive. David says he told me to take my clothes off. Money's rationale. Yeah, he told me to take his clothes off. Sorry, I missed a bit there. That he was going to give me a whipping, or he thought he was going to give him a whipping. So I took my clothes off and stood there shaking because he was a child. Money's rationale for these various treatments was his belief that childhood sexual rehearsal play, which is what he called it, was important for a healthy adult gender identity. Well, when you look at the fate of these two guys, you'll see that that's bullshit. Both David and Brian were traumatised, with Brian speaking about it only with the greatest emotional turmoil, and David unwilling to speak about the details publicly, although his wife Jane Fontaine stated that David had privately told her the same story. Brian was found dead of a drug overdose at 36 and David died by suicide at 38. Their parents state that Money's forced inappropriate therapy was responsible for both their deaths. So the boy who was castrated, who was sex changed, he died second. It was actually the boy who was used to perform these acts. He died of a drug overdose. Now on Wikipedia it says that he died of antidepressants overdose, but according to Miriam Grossman, it was actually heroin. And I'd seen an interview with somebody else about it, and they'd said it was heroin as well. This is the case, people. that these bloody ideologues say this is successful. You can do this. If you've got a son who wants to be a girl, you can do it. That's fine, because it's successful. Because John Money has sorted all this out for us previously. He'd done the work. He never spoke about this publicly. Never acknowledged it publicly. But according to a colleague of his, that he was mortified privately. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that at all. I don't believe someone that could do such a thing. Get two young boys when his parents weren't there to do what he was doing. And then he could be mortified. I don't believe somebody like that could be mortified. I don't believe they possess the emotional intelligence to do so. Because no one that could sort of perceive that, there's just no one, anyone who's thinking clearly couldn't do that to two kids. But he's actually chemically castrated one of, well, didn't chemically castrate one of them, he did castrate one of them. So this is where it comes from. This is where it started. And like I've said, I mean, I've spoken to a few people who I've asked, like transgender activists, saying that I'm involved in hate crime because I don't agree with them. And I say, right, okay, so do you know who John Money is? Who? If you're a transgender activist, and you're listen, I'm not saying you're bad people. You probably are looking for your altruistic moment because you're probably sick of spending your daddy's trust fund, so I get it. But if you are involved in transgender activism and you've not heard of this man, shame on you. And I suggest you go and look at it. I suggest you go and find out who he is, because there's a lot more to this story. And I can tell you now, and like I say, it completely shattered this whole family. This whole family got shattered. His brother committed suicide. His mum and dad were none too clever after it. Obviously depressed. They felt terrible. They were young, 20 and 21. Being this guy who's, they described him being like a god apparently. Of course he would appear that way, because if you're 20-year-old and you're working class and you've not had any education and you come across this man who's got in this new clinic at Johns Hopkins University and he's coming with his intellectual claptrap, of course it's going to blind you. Because I would imagine it would have been hitting them with word salads and it would have overwhelmed them. Bearing in mind they're going through a traumatic experience themselves because they've got a son here that's got no penis, so they need a saviour. So they believe this man was his saviour, and he just wasn't. It was the cause of their deaths, not just the son that he castrated, but the brother as well, due to the sexual acts he was performing on them. And that's where it comes from, everyone. That is where it comes from. Rapid onset gender dysphoria. That's what they call it. That's what they bloody call it. The word Miriam Grossman used, just bear with me a second here. When they'd said they'd changed it over. Where is it? Just bear with me a second here. Yeah, I can't remember the word she used. But it was still regarded as basically like a mental issue. I can't remember the exact terminology for it. And it was a mental issue. It was regarded as like I say, a mental issue. And that wasn't changed to 2013, and it is. There has to be an element of mental health to it, because as I explained in another video, there's a guy. Well, I don't know if he identifies as a guy. Maybe he identifies as a bloody aeroplane. I don't know, because he seems to think he's in a relationship with one. So he probably does. So much so that he's clocked up God knows how many miles as a flyer, because he wants to spend time with the person or the object that he's fell in love with. How is that not mental illness? How the hell is that not mental illness? Hey mum, really happy at the moment. How? Well, I've actually met someone. I'm in love. And who are you in love with? A Boeing 747. You're phoning the doctor, mate. Anybody comes and says that to you, you're phoning the doctor, but yet I'm supposed to just sit there and not say anything and let these people do this. Let these people manipulate people so much that they end up thinking they're in love with a bloody Boeing 747. Because that's what's happening. I seen a short video the other day there. Somebody claiming they were tri-gender now. So they're 3 genders. How the hell can you be 3 genders if there's only 2? Sat and watched a BBC panel claim there was 100 genders. Apparently they've added to that. Who is it that makes up these terms? Where is it they're coming from? Say, listen, right? If you want to identify as a fucking table, I don't care. You can identify with whatever you want. But when you try and enact or sign that into law, we've got a problem. We have got a problem when you try and regulate my speech to say that I need to believe what you believe or I'm in the wrong. We've got a big problem. I've got a problem with that, mate. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. And I'm not having anyone calling me someone that's a transphobic or anything like that, because I'm not transphobic. Like I've said, I'm for the rights of everyone. In fact, I've actually had a experience with homophobia. I've got a family member who's gay in the 90s. It still wasn't socially accepted at the time. And when I moved here, I had a strong, thick Glasgow accent. But my auntie and her partner had the ice cream van, so it was well known. I mean, some of the things I used to get said to me when I was always getting into fights because I'm not having them saying that about my aunties, because I called both them auntie, of course I did. And I was always getting into fights because of it. So I know what that's like. I've been there. And that's where I learned to stick up for the rights of everyone, because I had my auntie, I loved her dearly, got on brilliant with her, I still do, of course. So it doesn't matter. And people used to ask me, I was a kid, 9 years old, 10 years old, and they're asking me, do you know what I like? Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask them? But it's just as well I could look after myself, or it would have been a lot worse. But that's where the reputation came from, and I do regret that. But this is where I learned that everyone deserves to live their life the way they want to live it. So no one can sit here and call me and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you've never experienced it. Well, I have experienced it. I've literally, and it feels like you're on the receiving end of it, because, well, you are on the receiving end of it, because everyone's laughing at a family member of yours that you love dearly, that's been so good to you, it's so nice. And of course no one's going to put up with that. And it's the same with racism. Racism's crazy as well. I went to an all-boys school in Bath City in England, and because I was Scottish, of course I got a hard time. But here was this Muslim guy, this Muslim kid. He took me under his wing, and I realised at the time, I thought, well, here I am at this school, right? I'm white. All these people that are giving me hassle are all white. But yet here's this kid here. It's not even it's not even the Christian religion. He's a Muslim, and he's took me under his wing. And that was when I realised that it's what's in there that matters, not what's out here. See, this is what they're doing. They're just placing ever more labels, because the more labels you can put onto people, the more they can play us off against each other and divide us. I mean, 100 odd genders is just crazy, like, it's just madness. And I've heard them sitting on panels saying, oh, it's okay, just put their name into your phone and then put their pronoun next to it to remember it. It's like, but what happened to just having a nickname? What happened to that? Just give him a nickname. That's fine. If you want a different name, have a nickname. You can't change your gender. I'm fucking sorry about that. I'm really sorry. It can't be done. And there's only 2. That's the way it is. This channel is about the rights of everyone. It's about helping people. And I'll say it one more time. I am all for trans rights. If someone decides that they're in the wrong body, or it feels like they're in the wrong body, and that, I genuinely believe those people exist, and I do. Of course I do. And that's fine. You'll be supported, and again, if someone's giving you a hard time, I'll be the first to say something. But when it comes to, oh, actually, we need to sign this into law to make sure this sticks, that's the first hurdle down. And when they do that, that'll be it. They'll just start regulating everything, and that's the point. You can't say this because it'll offend him. No matter what you say, you're going to offend somebody. It doesn't matter what you say, you're going to offend somebody. And if you don't like the body that you're in, like I said in a couple of videos ago, that woman that sat in the audience at Jordan Peterson, oh, why are you telling people just to clean up your room? Well, it's not literally clean up your room, it means pull your head out your arse hen and start exercising. You'll feel better. That's it. That's when I was overweight, I was discriminated against constantly. I was always getting comments about my weight, and no, I didn't like it. I used to say at the time it never bothered me, but it did. I wasn't trying to cancel them or shut them up. I didn't even show any violence about it. What I done was, I put my head down and I got rid of the fat. And that's all you can do. And I know you can't just decide to jump into another body. But I'll say it again, if you want to dress up as an opposite member of the sex, or dress, I mean, some of them don't even look like that. Some of them look, I've seen better Halloween costumes the way some of them are dressed. Again, if you wish to dress like that, that's fine. But don't come running down the street at me and say to me, well, actually, there's 100 genders, and I say, no, there's 2, and then you say, no, it's hate crime. Because, again, we've got a problem. This is about being street smart and about being grown up. And when you look at some of these people, they're not growing up. They're just not growing up. They're like spoiled kids, I'll say it again. It's like society's told them, by the way, all that bullying that you got and all the bad stuff that's happened, it was all their fault. And now actually we're going to put you up on a pedestal and you can get them back. That's what it looks like to me, and it's not going to work that. It isn't going to work. That's why we need to say, right, okay, you've got your beliefs and I've got mine. I've got data here that proves my beliefs and I'm presenting it to you. If you're not growing up enough to read through that data with it storming out the bloody door shouting that you're a hate criminal, then I'm sorry, but you need to get yourself back to the drawing board. Because you've not grown up. You've went completely the wrong way down, you've went the wrong path completely. But that's the point. These people are purposely directing these people who feel like they're marginalised. And if they do feel like they've been marginalised and discriminated against, that needs to change. Of course it does. But we can't believe everything that you believe just to make you feel better. You can't get offended, but you can be offended. Everybody's going to get offended by something. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll get offended. It's how we deal with it. It's how we respond. I said to a guy on the phone a few months ago, 6 months ago it would have been, everybody ends up on their arse at one time and another. I don't care what your name is. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. You're going to end up on your arse at some point. It's how you respond to that. And it's the same with this. It's how you respond to it. It builds character. Like I say to people all the time, if you're in dark times, and when you're in dark times, that is the hardest time to be positive. But the more you can remain positive in these dark times, the quicker you will get out of these dark times. It's just a fact. It's a fact. Because if you remain positive, you're building strength and character, like the peaks and valleys, like I mentioned before. It's about growing up. Grow up, man. That's what that movement needs to do, and it needs to learn that we're going to disagree, but the data doesn't lie. And this is the thing: if 2 people are having an argument, right, and one says there's 100 genders and one says there's only 2, the one that's saying there's 100 genders, if they're just basing it on circumstantial evidence, and the person who's saying there's only 2 genders have actually got scientific data to back them up, the person that's saying there's 2 genders has won the philosophical argument because they're presenting data to back that argument up, whereas the person who's saying there's 100 genders isn't, because there's no data to back that up, because there isn't 100 genders. It's that simple. And that's the way I look at it. So if I have an argument with someone and I present the evidence to say, well, this is to the contrary, and they don't present the evidence, then again I've won the philosophical argument because I've produced data to back up what I'm saying. And that's we can all do that. This is the point of this channel, is to get people to start, scrub it all off. Don't listen to him, or any of them. I want to find out what's going on. I'm not going to let anyone's opinions influence, and I'm not going to let them sow any doubt, and I'm going to start again, and I'm going to go down the path, and I'm going to find out exactly what the bloody hell is going on here. You'll get further in a month than you will in the last 3 years by doing that, like, because there's not going to be any outside influences. I've mentioned before, as soon as doubt comes into it, it's all over. You've already lost. That's why you need to get away from the crowd, as I've mentioned. This is the same, I suppose, because the crowd are gender activists. They're really toxic. Like, they're some of the most unpleasant people I've ever came across, and I mean really unpleasant. Like, some of these anti-racists and all, man. There's some of the most racist people I've ever seen. Really vile. The transgender activists are worse. They've said some vile things to me over the years, proper vile, that if I'd said to them, I would probably get arrested. That's the point. That's why they've created spoiled children, because there's no bloody comebacks. Look at that woman and that woke manager in Starbucks one time. down in Manchester because the woman had basically, I think she refused to, or she used women, the word women or something like that, and it was vile. The way she treated the customer was vile. She lost her job for it, like. But this is the perception they've got of society. They think they're right. I'm right. I can do what I want, and because I'm right, by that definition, you must be wrong. That's why I take precedence over you. This is what's happening. We need to realise we're equal, and we need to start working together with these people. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to educate someone if every bit of information you present to them that counteracts their narrative, they get up and walk out or accuse you of hate crime. I mean, how are you supposed to bloody educate somebody like that? You can't. So it's probably best just to avoid, because there's no point arguing with them, because like Mark Twain said, there's no point arguing with stupid people because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience, which is true. It's happened to me many times. They literally make the top of your head want to blow off, and it's time for something. It's time for us to move on. And then you look at that Sean Strickland interview a few weeks ago before his UFC fight. And by the way, he shouldn't have lost that fight. And he only did because of what he said the day before. That's my opinion on it. When he said to the guy that he was a weak man and all the rest of it, and which he is. He was weak. He is weak. There's no doubt about it. That reporter is weak. He's weak because it's easy to stand with a crowd. It's easy to do that. What's not easy is to stand alone and say these things. Like during COVID, I mean, I was really one of the only people in this area that was saying it was a scam, and everybody was against me, even my own family. It's not a nice place to be, but by God does that build character, mate. It really does. And Sean Strickland, don't agree with everything he said in it. Like he said, if he now this is his opinion, that he would feel like a failure as a dad if his son was gay. Now that me myself, I don't buy into that, but that's his opinion. That's how he would feel. And I kind of get it. I mean, if you've got a son, like from his point of view, if he had a son who was maybe a little bit more feminine, and if the man was more masculine, a lot of men, I've seen it happen, they can sort of shun that because they don't match up to what they believe a man should be. So when that happens, then the child's going to gravitate more towards women. Of course they are. And this is what tends to happen. So I kind of get what he's saying there. That if he would feel like he failed, because he would have. Because he needs to, no matter who his son is, he needs to shower him with love and all the rest of it. But if he doesn't do that, he drives him away towards women. So I kind of get that. That's just my opinion on it. But it was good for somebody just to say something like that for a change. And he, like I say, he lost that belt the next day. Even Dana White said that he shouldn't have lost. Or it was that night, I can't remember. And he did because of what he said the day before. I'm sorry, that's why it was done. But he's got, I don't even watch UFC, but he's got a new fan in me because I just thought that's absolutely brilliant. It's time someone said something like that. Because all this woke nonsense it really is changing society, man. They're changing the information that's playing in our kids' minds, like, and it's creating a different reality around them, a very, very false one, false and negative. And it's true and positive. That's what I'm heading towards. Not false and negative, and that's what we all need to be heading towards. We're not always going to agree. You don't have to always agree, but if we've got that degree of respect and that philosophy, if I'd said David Icke's philosophy of do what you bloody want as long as you don't impose it to someone else. I had someone say to me, oh, that'll never happen. Why can't it happen? So you're saying it'll never happen, so you're not wanting to do it? Everybody else. Well, what about everybody else? If you can't live like that, then I'm sorry, you need to get into a corner and have a bloody word with yourself, because that's not too much to ask. In fact, I've been doing it for probably 5-6 years now, and I've been the happiest I've ever been in my adult life. There's no doubt about that, like. And it comes from minding my own business and not worrying what other people are doing. And people who are transgender, they can have a decent life. We're not saying we're not against you. We just don't want drag queens going into schools and teaching kids about bits at 6 and 7 year old. It's not on. And anyone that agrees to that and thinks that that's a liberal agenda, I'm sorry, but you need to go and boil your bloody head. You really do. So that's where we're at with it. I really do. I encourage you to go and look at John Money. Just type in the Reimer twins on Wikipedia and you'll get the same information I've got. Miriam Grossman, she was on What is a Woman. I think Jordan Peterson done an interview with her as well. You'll find her on his channel. I'd watched that last year. But What is a Woman? I've not watched all that yet, but from what I've seen of it, I mean, some of the activists on that, some of those doctors and that frighten me. Like they're like killer clowns. Like the way a killer clown frightens you. That's the way. Like there's a particular doctor on it, and she was very low and squeaky, and the minute Mark questioned her on something, you could see the ugliness starting to come through, and it was like, oh, you're not a nice lady at all. You don't like being refused, do you? And that's the problem with them, because they're in this environment where society's perking them up, or the dark lords behind society are. They think they can do whatever they want. So the minute someone comes in and says, well, actually, this is wrong, they don't like it. Spoiled children. Spoiled children's a fucking brilliant analogy for it, because you spoil a child and see what kind of adult you end up with. An adult that expects everything in the waters to part and everything just to fall into place, and when it doesn't, it's World War III. Been there, mate. Been there. That's why I'm here, because I've been there. So go and look at it. And then the next time a trans activist tells you that this is about the rights of trans people and that this is right and that it's been successful, you can refer them to that first case. And you'll see that it was anything but a success. And just one more thing before we finish up here. David Reimer, there's an interview with him. He actually said that he'd seen a documentary once saying that he was a success story within this movement. And he says, I felt sick. He says, I am not a success. They're both dead now. One of a heroin overdose and the other one a suicide. And the amount of people that end up killing themselves after going through this gender process to change sexes, a lot of them do it too. I'm not saying all of them do, but a lot of them do. And there's one called, I think her name's Chloe Cole. Go and listen to her story and you'll see. But these people don't seem to acknowledge that though. They don't seem to want to hear it. Again, if you even bring that up, you're committing hate crime. It's like, no, I'm just telling you that someone's had a bad time with it. The procedures that you're advocating for, someone over there's actually had a bad time with it, and they've told me that it was fucking horrible and they were suicidal, and now you want to put it onto my child. That's what I would be saying if I was a parent to them. But again, they're very passive aggressive at times also, and they don't like being refused. So narcissistic control freaks that don't like being refused are very difficult people to deal with. I'm sure you'll all agree. But it's just madness, and it comes from... Man's problems come from his inability to sit in a room quietly and think things over. And I believe that, because when I started doing that, things did start to change for me. And I think that's what these need to do, is just to go and sit in a quiet room for a bit and just have a little word with themselves in their own ear, and just to sort of have a recap of this information. Or if I say recap, actually look at this information, because to say recap would mean that they've looked over it before, and so many of them haven't. So that's it. That's the transgender, that's my take on it. And I'll say it one more time, I'm willing to support people who feel like they're in the wrong body, and they'll get super, and I'll make sure that, or if I'm in the presence, I'll make sure no harm will come to you, because I wouldn't let it. Because I'm for everyone's rights. I'm not going to say, oh, you're all okay, but transgender people, now you can do what you want. No, it doesn't work like that. You're either all for freedom or you're not for it. That's just the way it is. And we need to be all for it. And once we get all for true freedom, this world will change. I mean, we don't need these politicians telling us this nonsense. We can work this stuff out on our own. And you'll prove that once you start actually doing your own research, if you haven't already. I'm not sure if this will be uploaded before the live tonight. But I'll see you on the live. I've got my laptop and that here set up. I checked it all yesterday for the condenser mic, etc. So yeah, I'll see you on the live if this is uploaded prior to that. I have got another couple of videos to upload. I'm going to do one on COVID, I think, as well. Yeah, I'll keep you updated anyway on exactly what it's going to be, but I would just like to thank you again for watching my video and for your continued support and your words that you send me as well. They're so inspiring. That's what keeps me going. So I really like to thank you for that. And again, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one, and I'll hopefully see you on the live as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.